here, be able to answer everybody's questions. So yeah.
Oh, it's 5 o'clock and we're ready to get started. And today I think we're talking about a very, very important topic, debunking myths and answering questions about global college admissions. And we've got with us Dr. Kim Dixit and we've got Namita Mehta with us both from the Red Pen. And Red Pen is one of the leading education consultants in India. I think they're probably the best ones. I think I've said that before. So they are right up there. I think their knowledge is invaluable. I personally have also used them. We were very confused about my nephew, and Namita was, I mean, right bang on. So thank you, Namita, for that. I think your advice was so, so valuable for us. And that's why I was so excited that when we got this opportunity to actually host you and to do this session on Sipping Thoughts with you guys. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sukirti Gupta. I'm the co-founder of Sipping Thoughts. Sipping Thoughts is a multi-platform media company that was set up by me and by Meeta Gudkutia. It was set up keeping in mind the tagline, Real Women, Real Thoughts. We wanted to create a no judgment platform and create a network of women for women, and of course, a lot of the men that have supported us. Sipping Thoughts, we reach about 2.5 million women on a monthly basis. We're available on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and of course, please do check out our website. There's lots of interesting content. We cover a host of subjects. We do parenting, we do career, we do spirituality, we do women's issues, money, business. So I'm sure you'll find something that will be important and interesting for you. But today, I think we are talking about one of the biggest questions that are facing us. And many parents and students, they think, and I thought so too, that we know what matters when it comes to college admissions. But sometimes our strategies are based on what worked before, or maybe what somebody else told us. And a lot of things have changed and things are constantly changing. And so sometimes people may be well intentioned, but there's a lot of misinformation that could be there from family, friends, and in extremely rare situations that aren't probably the norm for most. In this session, we're going to debunk some of the most common myths and answer your questions on college applications that refer to both India and abroad. I have two experts with me. I've got Dr. Kim, who has nearly a decade of experience as an independent education consultant for undergraduate, postgraduate, and MBA applications. She also writes regularly for Hindustan Times newspaper, and her newspaper column is very well read. Kim offers study abroad advice to readers across India, and in the past, she has taught undergraduate courses at Duke University and at Stanford as a postdoctoral teaching fellow in the humanities. In Mumbai, she has conducted courses in anthropology at St. Xavier's College and writing workshops at the American Center. Kim has a Ph.D. from Duke University and a BA from the University of California in Santa Barbara. So, Kim, very, very happy to have you back with us. And her partner in crime today is Namita. And Namita has led the University Guidance Counseling Department at the B.D. Somani International School in Mumbai for over 3 years. She's been an in-house counselor. She has advised students on effective profile development, managed the international university application process, and developed relationship with university admission officers. Namita also specializes in training applicants for the Oxford and Cambridge interview process, which is extremely grueling and tough. And Namita has an MS from Oxford, and she's done A levels from Charterhouse Boarding School. So, Namita, welcome to Sipping Thoughts. We're so excited to have both you and Kim with us.
Thank you so much, Sukriti. Great to be here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for the introductions.
So tell me, before we get started, and I know we're dying to get into the 9 myths, but Kim, why did you get into education consulting? I know you've taught, you've done so many things. You've been at Stanford, you've been at Duke, and now you said, okay, you know what? You saw this opportunity in India, and you've been in India now for the last 10 years or more than that?
More than that. I've been here for around 13 years. But I think in terms of why I got into it, I think the main reason, it wasn't that I saw some amazing commercial opportunity or anything like that. It was more a matter of, there were lots of gaps I could see in people's understanding and families, students, their understanding of, of applying to college abroad. So what we've really tried to do over the years is build that bridge and be that bridge for families in India or anywhere actually in the world, who want to study in another place. So whether it's the US, the UK, if you're coming from, Papua New Guinea to the Netherlands, whatever the sort of translation needed, we've kind of tried to offer that to families, because I think, there's no, whether it's, whether it's everyone who wants to go to the US or everyone who wants to the UK, there's just no one size fits all kind of answer. And I think that's what I realized when I sort of thought of getting into
So
this.
confusing because there's so many choices now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do I go to the US? Do I go to UK? Do I stay in India?
And like you said, people just were acting on information that they had based on, various sources. And so I just felt like there really was a need for, delivering a very solid understanding of what are the expectations, how can you meet them, what is, and also, showing how to highlight the value of what your Indian education, the Indian education system, and highlighting all of that and its strength in the right way to global universities, I think was a big motivation behind why I got into this. And having sort of been on both sides of the world and experiencing education in both places, I felt like I was in a good position to offer that service. But through the years, definitely, I've learned through a lot of professional development, building a lot of networks, and connecting with people who are in this profession, whether it's at the university side, the school side, or whatever. So I think that's been also a really gratifying part of the process, is just building that professional network and understanding how other people like us are doing this around the world and being connected to that.
Oh, thank you. That's a really lovely story. And when did you start Red Pen? How many years has that been?
We started in 2011, so this is our 10th year, which is a cause for big celebration. We started in 2011, very small, very, testing out what might work, and tried a couple of different things. And I think what we realized is that, the more you can personalize your service and the more you can personalize the advice you give, the better the outcomes for families and students. And that's really what they're looking for.
Well, thank you. Namita, how about you? How did you get into this?
For me, this was a bit of an accident, actually. I studied science at university, and I moved here right after I graduated. But while I was at university, when I used to fly down to Mumbai to visit my family, the principal of the B.D. Samani International School would invite me in, and he'd be like, "Hey, can you speak to the students about your experience? Why did you choose Oxford? How did you go about it?" And I just used to do this at an ad hoc level. I used to kind of come in and help who I could. And then I moved here, and I wanted to pursue a career in science first, and I kind of looked into that. I worked at Metropolis. I kind of thought about doing a Ph.D. And then Mr. Gardner, actually at the B.D. Samani International School, the principal at the time, just said, "Why don't you join the school? I need a counselor. I need someone who can help me. I need someone who can kind of head this department." And I ummed and ahed for a while, to be honest. But then, the minute I joined, I haven't turned back. And I think education's been my calling. It's been amazing because they'd invested in me. I went to so many conferences. I developed professionally. I was able to attend an IACAC conference in the US. I connected with many admissions officers because I was on the school side. Read up online, connected with other counselors in the city and other cities in India as well. And so that was the beginning of the journey. After that, I kind of took a little bit of time off because I had my kids and it was just getting too overwhelming. I had 2 under 2. And then I decided to kind of get back into the education profession, but in a bit more of a freelance manner. And that's when I met Kim and Kavita at the Red Pen. And it's just been an amazing journey since then. And we've just been growing together.
I mean, one thing I must say, and that I appreciate, that you guys are really on the pulse of it. And not only on the pulse, because a lot of people know about maybe the US or the UK, but you really have this whole experience now of that global. And with that, I hand it over to you. So let's get started. I know everybody is dying to know more about this admission process and what are these myths that we're going to debunk today.
Okay, so today we're going to be speaking, debunking myths about college admissions. The way we thought we would design this session Kim and I have identified 9 myths that we commonly hear, and we're just going to quickly walk you through those, and then have a lot of time for Q&A. You can ask us questions about undergrad admissions, postgrad admissions, MBA, whatever you have on your mind. We will try our best to answer them. So please feel free to keep putting your questions in the chat box, and we'll get to them soon. I think Sukriti's done an amazing introduction, so I'm just going to leave it and we can move on. Okay, so the first myth is top test scores guarantee admissions to top colleges.
Namita, should I go ahead and answer these?
Go ahead. Yes,
okay.
Go ahead.
So I think we hear this a lot where we see students who've scored really well, they've got the best grades, they've aced the SAT, they're just, at the top of their game academically. And, they feel that, and then they look at the averages for, top Ivy League and Stanford and all these universities, and they're way above that. So they think I will get in. But the reality is that, whether you're talking about the US or the UK, every college and every country's admissions process is looking at different things. So that's something really important to keep in mind. So if you're really, really interested in Oxford, for example, what you need to demonstrate and what you need to do is very different from, say, what you need to demonstrate and do to get into, say, Stanford, or to get into, ETH Zurich or something, or NUS Singapore. Like, all of those have very different metrics by which they measure and evaluate students. And so it's really important to keep that in mind when you think about, what are my safeties and where am I guaranteed to get in? So based on that, the US is a very holistic admissions process. And so what that means is they're taking into account lots and lots of things. So there's no way that a college like Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Princeton, any of those are ever anyone's safety college, because the process is so holistic, and they have their own rubric for putting together, their freshman class of students, that you may just not kind of meet that criteria in one way or another, and you're not admitted despite your best scores. And in fact, I think there's a statistic that a lot of these colleges quote, which is, we reject more perfect SAT scores than we accept every year. So, I mean, that's not a nice statistic to hear, but it's very true. Versus, and Namita can obviously tell you more about this, but the Oxford or Cambridge process, which is very much looking at, do you have the best academic metrics to demonstrate that you have complete mastery over the subject? Well, that's one hurdle in the Oxbridge process. But then next, if you have those, then you're invited to an interview, which is very, very academic. And we'll ask you, and again, Namita can say a lot more about this because she's been through it. They will ask you very specific academic questions, and you have to be able to articulate those and show that you're a good fit for the Oxbridge system of learning. So I think it's not an easy. When people come to me and they say, what are my chances, at a particular university? It's very hard for me to say, because the colleges look at such specific things and they're all so different, that giving, chances is very, very hard. And it's very, very dependent on the college itself, the country, and the different systems of education that are out there. And Namita, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
I think just one thing that I would like to add to everything that Kim has said is that oftentimes your strong test scores is the foundation of an application to a competitive university. Having that means that your foot is in the door. It doesn't mean that you're admitted necessarily. So having top test scores is certainly important, and you should definitely strive for that, practice, and get there. But also be aware that there's a lot of other, that there's many other pieces to this admissions puzzle that you have to, join together, be aware of before you think about your chances, like Kim said. So test scores are important. Make sure that they're good, that you've done your best, and that they are within the range that the universities ask for. But yes, there is a lot of other factors in this process, and we will cover that as we continue. And one more thing that I do want to say is that because a lot of universities have become test optional because of COVID-19, and College Board made some big announcements just in the last couple of weeks, where they've gotten rid of the SAT2 subject tests that Indian students are so used to doing, as well as the essay part of the SAT1. So there's lots of changes happening in test administration and testing all around the world. So just keep a pulse on this. Universities are not test blind, which means if you submit scores, they will look at them. So it's a kind of like a double-edged sword, but there's a lot happening. And yes, top test scores are important, but they're definitely not the decision maker in this process.
While you're on that, I think Rashi has a question, and I'll take it right now. Has the SAT subject test been canceled forever, or only for the time being? Because I think there's a lot of confusion now, because a lot of rules were relaxed. And are those rules, when will we know? Are we going back to what was pre-COVID, or will it be what was in COVID times?
So I think the SAT tests have been canceled or are eliminated forever. They're no longer going to be offered by the College Board. In fact, there's no sittings. American students in the US cannot take the SAT 2 subject test anymore. There's, I think, the international students have one more sitting this May, and then that's it. They're no longer going to be offering these tests. It's administered by the College Board, which is the same company that offers AP subjects and even the SAT 1 test that everyone does. So yeah, this is, I think it's a combination of what's been happening in COVID and the way universities are assessing these test scores and trying to streamline processes when it comes to testing, I think. And, the APs will be a close alternative, but I mean, that's a different discussion altogether.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the next myth, which is a long list of extracurricular activities is very impressive. So I don't think this comment is not true for any university that you apply to, whether it's in India, whether it's in the US, whether it's in the UK. Let me address this statement when we talk about college admission in the US. So one of the factors that university admissions officers really look at is your talent. What have you been doing outside of the classroom? How engaged are you in the community? And they do this because they want to see whether you're going to be contributing to the campus when you come to them. They don't really want students who are just going to sit in their room and study. They want you to be able to be involved in their clubs, be involved in research, be involved with socially. And so this is very important when it comes to the US application process. And what universities like to see is that you've done a few activities in depth rather than a range of activities in like a breadth of activities. They like to see that high school students have studied, have developed a passion over high school. So they like students that are focused and that show consistency and are able to just kind of take a passion and do something more with it every year as they get into it. We had a student that we worked with I think 4 years ago now, who was admitted to Harvard, and she had two passions. One was public health and the other one was music. And she really kind of delved deeper into them. She made sure that she volunteered at hospitals over long weekends. And at the same time, she was also kind of, singing and doing acting and playing music as well at very high level. And she was taking these passions, through her high school years, developing on them every year. And I think that's what they look for rather than just being like, doing volleyball one semester and then doing drama the next and then adding a bit of social service. And one thing that I do want to say is that this whole idea of community service and social service is very valued in the US, especially when students come from India and they're able to kind of really do something to impact the community. But this is by no means mandatory, and you shouldn't do it just to tick a box. You should be genuinely passionate about what you want to do. And do it and do it not for college admissions, do it because you really want to do it and that you really do want to make a difference. And that, comes out in your essays and it comes out through the rest of your application and even the letters of recommendation. So yes, just to go back to this myth, doing extracurricular activities that are pointed, focused, and genuinely show your passion because you want to do them is a lot more effective than just doing something to tick a box.
One question I have, Namita, is this more relevant to the US universities, much more so, which are looking at extracurricular activities, or also other countries are also starting to look at your extracurricular focus?
That's a great question, Sukriti, and I'm going to answer that. So in India, there's a bunch of liberal arts colleges that have sprung up over the last few years, and their evaluation is very similar to US colleges. So they do really want to know what extracurricular activities you're doing. In fact, there's a space on their form for you to fill, what extracurricular activities you're doing, what are you doing outside the classroom, how engaged you are. So yes, they do care. In the UK, it's slightly different. They, like Kim mentioned in the earlier, that the UK is very much focused on academics. They really want to see that, because when you apply to a UK university, you're applying into a particular course, you're applying into a major, and that's all you study while you're there. So they like to see extracurricular activities that are connected with your major. So for example, if a student is interested in studying PPE, they'd be really interested to see if you've done any extra courses in the summer related to that subject, or if you've done an internship, or if you've done any kind of public policy outreach or anything like that. They like to see extracurricular activities that are related to your particular subject. For Canada, they also do appreciate, again, it's like the US, they like to see extracurricular activities that are diverse and that really show the kind of person that you are.
One more question along this line of extracurricular, because we hear a lot of myths that, especially for UK, and that it doesn't matter so much, just focus on your grades.
I think to some extent that's actually true, Sukriti. I mean, grades are very important. But one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that, we might not think doing extra reading or doing some kind of research is considered an extracurricular activity. You might put that in the academic bucket, but it is in some ways an extracurricular activity as well, right? So, for students that are applying to UK universities, you still have to write a 4,000 character personal statement. That's one side of A4 to justify to the university that you're passionate about that subject. And you can't do that by just saying, hey, I study chemistry in school, I love it, and now I want to do it at university. Right? You need to show that you've done a little bit more reading, that you've engaged in the subject a little bit outside the classroom. And even if you do that extra reading, or you engage in a research project, or you do an online course, those things are good. Those things are good enough.
Thank you.
Okay.
And one more question, sorry. When should the student, sorry, I have so many, I'm so, when should students start doing these ECAs? Because, that is also a myth. Do they start as early as 8th grade? Some are pushing the kids till 5th grade, or is it really 9th, 10th grade is what the universities are looking at?
So in the US, when you're applying to US universities, on the application form, you're allowed to put down any extracurricular activity that you've done after 9th grade. So if you're like an Olympiad winner or chess champion in grade 8, it's really not that relevant unless you continue doing that through high school, if you know what I mean. So that's the timeline for the US. For UK, it doesn't matter, but of course they're more interested in what you're doing the penultimate couple of years before you apply. Saying that I read a really interesting chemistry book in grade 5 isn't really necessarily going to be impressive. I mean, they really want to know what you've been doing in grade 9, grade 10, especially in grade 11, because that's when you're most mature and you can really engage in an extracurricular activity that is more meaningful.
One more question is coming in from Avni. Sorry, lots of questions about this.
No, of course.
Given last summer and given COVID situation this summer, again, may be a washout. And boards are very late. How useful is a competitive but online summer school? What other things can kids do? Because a lot of ECAs will not be there.
Kim, I'll let you answer this one.
I think, like everything in this process, it's very competitive. So it would be great if I could say to everyone, they'll understand it was COVID, don't do anything. That would be a nice answer, but that's not the answer. The answer is that there are going to be a lot of kids out there who will find something to do. They will make the most of it. They will create opportunities for themselves. And if you're really targeting highly selective universities, you have to stand out in the process, and you need to find something that demonstrate extracurricular activities, and also, like Namita said, depending on where you're applying, a deepening of interest in an academic subject as well. So I think it's, while it's been difficult in COVID, and next summer will probably also be difficult, it's not impossible. There's a lot to do. And I think that is what admissions officers will be looking for, is how much initiative did this student take during a very difficult time? And what kids are going to be doing and what they're going to be comparing is going to be very different from past years, but that doesn't mean that everybody's going to have done nothing. It means everyone's going to have done something different or innovative or unusual. So I think, to answer the question about online summer programs, if that's not your thing, don't do it. I mean, there's no sort of requirement to do online summer programs or to do anything online. Next summer, your kids just might be, I'm so tired of being online that I want to just, I want to go work in local parks or something. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying, get outside, do something else. So I think finding those opportunities, and we did see even this past year, a lot of kids who, of course, took advantage of, what they could do in COVID, distributing food, raising money, helping out in health facilities if it was possible. I mean, whatever, or in their own housing society. I mean, there are lots of things that kids can do. I'm trying to think of another good example. Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of that. We also saw, I mean, I've had several students who are very interested in math and data analytics and economics, looking at data sets of COVID data, understanding how to, analyzing them, working on them, maybe not writing published reports, but doing work in that area to just show that, they've done something. So I think, there's still a lot to do. So I know it's difficult, but again, this is a very competitive process, and anything you can do to stand out is you should do if you are targeting those very selective universities.
One last question before we move on from ECAs. So if we leave UK apart, how about for the other European universities? Do they need impressive ECAs? Vertika Madhulkar is asking. Madhu Liar, sorry, is asking. I pronounced it, I butchered the name, sorry.
I'll try to answer that, and Namita, you can also jump in. But I think, just on this whole, I'll take a bigger step back. I think the point is not, this college requires ECAs and this one doesn't, and that one does, and this one doesn't. I mean, yes, we can get into all that, but the thing is that extracurricular activities and getting out of your comfort zone and all the things that are involved in, engaging in new things or different things besides your school help a student to grow and to understand themselves and mature. And then their decisions and their decision making is enhanced. So I'm just saying that while we're talking about ECAs and them being impressive for an application, that's one thing. But I think it's also really important to see that, a student who maybe did an extracurricular activity or are engaged in a research project understands better what they like about that subject, what they don't like about that subject. I had a student this year who did many different extracurricular activities related to physics. They were all very different, and it gave her a very strong sense of what she likes about physics, what she doesn't like. Does she want to do lab work? Does she want to do experimental work? Is she more interested in collaboration? What does she like? What kind of a learner is she? What kind of a contributor is she? So I think when a student can realize that, maybe the extracurricular activity itself doesn't matter as much as when they then write the what's called in Europe, the motivation letter. So in Europe, you have to write a motivation letter, which is again about a one page on why you want to study this course. What a student can say and the way they can articulate it is much stronger than someone who's, like Namita said, only gone to school. So I think it's important to understand that extracurriculars are always important for everywhere, for any human being's self-development, and then how the different country education systems sort of weight them in the application process, that tends to vary.
Okay, and now we will move on from these.
And one more thing, I think, somebody did say something about summer schools, and, while, Kim touched upon the fact that there's so much other things that you can do. And, sometimes, not all students are motivated at the same level to take on projects by themselves and do independent projects or passion projects and go distribute food and all of that. And in that case, enrolling in a summer program and learning something new, or, immersing in a new language or picking up a new course is absolutely fine. So basically my point is that doing an online summer program is absolutely fine as long as this child is engaged and is interested in that particular subject, and it will go down well. Universities are going to appreciate the fact that you couldn't fly over, or you couldn't do something else that you wanted to do over the summer, and you've decided that you want to do this program. And again, the way you kind of explain why you chose to do that particular summer program is also going to be very important when it comes to college admissions.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next one is writing about your achievements in your college essays is the best way to show your competence. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, so again, I think college essays is a broad category. Like I said, Europe wants a motivation letter. Canada doesn't really want anything. UK wants a different style of personal statement. And then the US has very personal essays on very specific topics. So every approach needs to sort of respond to the type of question you're being asked. And considering that, I think it's really important, like I said earlier, to be able to, whatever you've done, the ways that you've grown, challenge yourself, et cetera, be able to kind of encapsulate them in a very consistent narrative. And that's important. It's not important to say, and, from the age of 3, I did this, and then I did that at 4, and then I did 5. And, it's like, that's just not what application, that's really not what they want to see. They want to see, why are you whether motivated for this course, why do you want to come to our college, whatever the question is that they're asking. But I think we have so many examples of students who've written very successful essays on a very, and this is especially true in the US, where the questions are personal, right? Talk about a time you were challenged, or a time that you stood up for an idea or something like that. So to then say, and of course they have an open-ended one, which is, tell us about something that we need to understand to really know you, or something more open-ended like that. I can't remember the exact wording right now. But to take that essay topic and then write every single thing you've ever done is really not what they're looking for, because that information is in other parts of the application. So admissions officers, when we meet them, when we talk to them, when they visit the schools, they really repeat this over and over. And so there should be no doubt that what they're looking for in the personal essay is to understand what kind of person you are, not what all you've done, because there are other parts of the application that indicate what you've done. Some colleges allow you to upload a resume. The Common App allows you to input 10 activities. I mean, all that information there's awards and achievement section. I mean, there's lots of places to put all those things. So do not put them in your essay. And the same goes for the UK as well. I mean, there may be small things you did that led you to something else. So talk about that something else and how important that was. You don't really have to talk about that small thing that got you there, or speak about it in a very, in a very introductory way. You don't have to get into depth. So I think that, spending more time on, like Namita said earlier, not what you've done, but why you've done it is a much more valuable approach to the college essay. So I always give this example that, in my activity section, it may say that I love to play tennis. And in Namita's activity section, it also says that she plays tennis. And we play at the same level, we're the same competition. But you as a college, you don't know why I play tennis versus why she plays tennis. And so in the essay, I can tell you that, I started out playing tennis because my grandfather was a national level tennis player, and it was our great way of bonding when I was a child. And I always associated tennis with him. And, it's very, for me, it was always a connection I had with another player. And that's why I play tennis. It's all about the relationships and the connection. Namita, on the other hand, is, I never could find, I used to be a ballerina. She used to be a ballerina, but then she got injured and she could only play tennis, and she's super competitive. So she had to get into tennis. And I mean, there's just a whole other story there about why she got into tennis. So I'm just saying, your essay is your opportunity to tell the why behind why you do what you do. Right? And so many students are the same. They're all the same. I mean, not all, but many are all the same. And the admissions officers don't know how to differentiate them. So this is your opportunity to say, here's how I am different. So I really think that's the best use of the essay versus, just listing off your achievements, which can be found somewhere else. So I think I've said a lot about that. Namita, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you've covered it all.
Okay.
Should we move on, Sukriti?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Any questions on this part? Please, guys, keep shooting them, because if they're relevant, we'll take them as we go along also.
Okay, so the next myth is that letters of recommendation are not in my control. So, of course, you often have to waive the right to read your letters of recommendation, and that's the way to go about it. You're not supposed to write them. Your teacher's not supposed to share them with you, but that doesn't mean that they're not in your control. What we recommend all our students to do is to list down all the activities that they've done, and go and have a conversation with who they want to write with their recommender. Because by doing that, you're making the recommender's job a lot easier, right? If I go up to my math teacher and I say, hey, I'm applying to XYZ college and I need you to write a letter of recommendation for me, and I'm just going to list over here the bunch of math competitions that I've participated in, and how I've done, and a couple of times when I've excelled in school, so that it gives them material to also write about you. I think that's an approach that we always encourage students to take. Of course, after you hand them that resume or that piece of paper, that's it. You cannot be like, can I read it and edit it? That's unethical, and we do not recommend that. But being upfront about it and speaking to them, and sometimes letters of recommendation, especially in the US, when we engage with admissions officers, because there's no I can say that I'm like the physics Olympiad all India winner, right? The thing is that the US universities are going to believe me. They're not going to, I don't have to submit certificates along, right? So if this is also written about by my recommender, then it's kind of got the stamp of approval. It's kind of got that yes, this is true, she's right, So it's good for you to engage with your recommenders and give them points about what to write about when it comes to you. The other thing is that, Kim and I work with so many students where they're like the first person applying abroad from their institution. And, you just feel like, oh, my teachers don't know how to do it. And I'm sure this, the principal will figure it out. That's probably not the best approach, because if they've not had experience in writing letters of recommendation that are going to help you, it's important that you have a conversation with them about it. Oftentimes Kim and I get involved. We're speaking to school administration, and we're giving them advice on how to go about this piece, and we send resources to them and we assist them, because that can really go against a student. Very many students are students who are competitive, and if the letters of recommendation do not come in the format that the admissions committees are used to, this can be sometimes a little detrimental. So, do not ignore this component thinking that, hey, it's nothing to do with me and, my school will handle it. A lot of schools, yes, in the metro cities have experienced counselors and they will be able to do it. So you don't need to get over involved, but still giving them a list or giving them some kind of a cheat sheet about you is only going to help you.
I have a question on this one.
Yes.
Because I know it's even tough for me when I have to apply for a job or something. And the first thing they ask is, how do you select who should you get your letter of recommendation from? Because that's the toughest part.
Kim, do you want to answer that?
Well, I think it depends on, again, the country, the college, and all those things. But for the US, you're required, for most colleges that use the Common Application, you're required to submit 2 teacher recommendations and 1 counselor recommendation. So the counselor is, school appointed. You don't have anything to do with that. And that's a very broad view of a student. What is the student like in the context of our school? How much do they take advantage of opportunities, et cetera? And they'll also get inputs from other teachers and administrators that to put in that letter. When it comes to subject teacher letters, it's very important in the US to get those letters from teachers who've taught you in the 11th and 12th grade. And that's just, a lot of students, they change schools in 10th grade and they want to get a letter from a previous teacher. It's not a good idea. So 11th and 12th grade teachers in course academic subjects. So English, math, sciences, languages sometimes, but not the most recommended. And unless you're really going in for, sort of a language study course. And really not recommended to have a teacher in, say art or music, or unless you're going into those programs, art, music, sports, things like that. So it's what they're really looking for is, your academic subjects. Now, I want to just give this example because it happened just this year, just recently. I was working with a student and she was writing about her, it was, why do you want to study economics? And she wrote about a lot of projects she'd done and a lot of activities she'd been involved with. And there was one club in her school that she was involved with, and she barely told me about it. It was a science club. And because it had, because of COVID, she hardly even got to do it. But her science teacher, who she'd asked for a recommendation from, came back to her, I think, in the school counselor, and said, that I don't know if he said she should write about it in her essays, but she should highlight it, this science club, because what that was kind of signaling was he's going to write about it in his letter, that she was instrumental in starting the science club, because that was important to him and what he knew about her as a student. And so having this conversation with the teacher is important, because then you end up corroborating each other's impression of a student versus, and we see this with admissions officers, they do mock sessions or they tell us about applications they've received where what the student is emphasizing and highlighting is very different from what the counselor is emphasizing and highlighting, and they can't really match and make sense of it. So it's important to kind of just make sure there's a little bit of cohesion here.
Thank you.
Sure. Sorry, I did just want to quickly say about the UK. If a student is applying to the UK, you only have to submit 1 letter, and typically with Europe as well. And in that case, if you're applying to say physics or engineering or something, you should have a teacher who is, it should be a subject subject specific teacher. And many schools have like a tutorial system where your tutor will write the letter, but the tutor then gets inputs from teachers and other people. So Namita, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's
yes.
important. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so we can, the next myth is doing a summer program at a competitive college means you're more likely to get into that college. We've spoken a little bit about summer programs. I'll just start off by saying that, I'm sure many of you have heard of Columbia Summer Program or Brown Summer Program or there's Wharton, Knowledge for Wharton. Now, most of these summer programs are conducted. Yes, there might be faculty that are teaching these programs, but these summer programs have nothing to do with admissions into the particular university. So if you kind of say that, hey, I'm gonna go off to Brown this summer and then I'll apply to Brown and I have a high chance of getting in, that's not necessarily true. Because a lot of the times these summer programs are, if you have the means, you're admitted and you end up going. It's not necessarily very competitive. Of course, there are competitive summer programs that exist that have a very lengthy application process. But in general, be very wary that, if you're just thinking that, hey, I'll just go off to the summer program, put it on my application, and it'll show that I was passionate and that, I'm going to get in. So just understand that even in Oxford and Cambridge, in fact, over there, what happens is the colleges rent out their space to other companies. So it might sound like, oh, I'm going for the Cambridge Reach program, but Cambridge Reach has really nothing to do with admissions at Cambridge. Yes, they might have hired a couple of professors to teach courses over the summer or do some of the tutorials, but it really has absolutely no connection to admissions. So that's just the point that I wanted to make here. Kim, is there
one question here, because I think this one, you guys have also done a huge webinar just on summer programs, but people are also asking, what are good competitive summer programs that would make a difference?
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry, Kim. I'm just also making sure we get the questions.
Do you want to answer that first?
I mean, I can mention a few you can add to the list. I mean, there are definitely competitive summer programs. There's this one at Wharton called Leadership in the Business World. That's for students in the penultimate year of high school. That's competitive. I mean, I think they have like a 25-30% admit rate. There's an essay you need to write. You need to submit test scores. That is a recommendation. The whole works. Then there's the RSI at MIT. Now that application is harder than the actual MIT application. It's that competitive, okay? There's that one. Then there's which is the math one? I forget, Kim.
Promise.
No. Promise and even SUMAC.
Yeah.
So that's competitive. There are many, but again, you can tell how competitive they are by even the application process to the summer program. I mean, some of them, like I said, it's like applying to college. And they ask for scores, they ask for things, and they ask for your report cards. And yes, in that case, there is correlation between admission into the summer program, doing well, and then being admitted at the undergrad level if you apply early decision. Obviously, there's many ifs in that statement. Yes, so those are some of them. But yeah, you can. We do have a list, and if whoever asked that question could kind of connect up with us later.
You've also just done a webinar on summer programs, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. No, so last Saturday, what we did was it wasn't a webinar, it was actually an online fair.
Oh, sorry.
We did this last year live in Mumbai, where we just had, we had different different vendors and partners that were offering some kind of summer program to come together in one place. And we invited parents of all high school students to come and interact with them. So whether your child was interested in artificial intelligence, dance, art, or just skiing, you could come and you could speak to different partners and see whether they offered some kind of a summer opportunity for your kid. And that's what this program was. And we replicated the whole thing online last Saturday. It was really interesting. We had a great turnout, and Kim and I did some sessions there as well on planning your summer and some of the other topics that we're talking about here today as well.
So some more questions on summer programs, some interesting summer programs for commerce students. And if one does a summer program related with the subject for one's bachelor or master's, does that make more impact?
If one does a summer program related with the subject, I don't know what you mean by more impact, but I guess
I would say better chances of getting into the university.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about master's programs, summer programs, because usually for a master's, you need to be doing research or something that it doesn't really matter where you're doing it as much as what you're doing. with master's research programs or summer programs or extracurricular programs, it's important that, you know, whoever's mentoring you, you're working under, you're working with, is either somebody who can connect you in that master's program directly or someone who knows people. Because at the master's level, you know, and especially at the PhD level for sure, faculty know each other across institutions. So, you know, I might be an undergraduate at Yale and my my sort of senior thesis advisor at Yale, his colleague is at Stanford and I want to apply to the PhD program at Stanford, and that can really help you. So that's a very different sort of arrangement of collegial relationships that you can tap into and networks you can build. And so for that's master's programs, but when you're talking about summer programs in the subject, so for example, Namita mentioned leadership in the business world, or let's say you go and do sort of a business related summer program, even in India or anywhere else, but you want to study in the US or the UK, yes, all of those things help, because what happens is in the process, a student will be asked, you know, why do you want to study, let's say, at Wharton? As an undergraduate, why do you want to study here? And then the answer has to be because I understand business, because I went to this summer program and I know what I like about business. I know where I'm excited to contribute in the business world. I know a lot of things about myself and how I relate to business and how that matches up with what Wharton is offering. So that kind of exposure is really valuable when it comes to, you know, making a college understand why you're a good fit for the course and the college. And I think, I just want to say this because I think people really worry that, oh, you know, my child wants to study business or commerce in college and they need to take, you know, business studies in high school. That's not true. So taking commerce, accounting, and, you know, these kinds of subjects in high school is really not an expectation at all. The only thing you need to study in high school to be admitted to a competitive business program anywhere in the world is math. Okay, so math is important. They will teach you everything about business, commerce, marketing, operations, whatever. All the business subjects will be covered by them. They're not there. They want to teach you that. They do not want you to come in with previous knowledge, and they prefer, you know, students who have a very strong base in things like, you know, math than something, you know, that they can teach you very simply. Okay. So again, just, I think I've answered that question in a very roundabout way, but I think it's covered.
Okay.
All right. We're going on to the next myth.
So my social media activity doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll just touch on this one for a minute. I think a lot of students are like, you know, their social media is something they do with their friends. It's something that they may be involved in, may not be involved in, don't really think about it when it comes to college admissions. But it is important for students to kind of make sure make sure your social media is cleaned up and it's looking, you know, presentable to the outside world, because that's always important, not just in college admissions. So that's one thing. But the second thing is to understand how colleges actually, it's unlikely a college will go and look up a particular student and their social media profile unless they're looking for something in particular. That's the feedback we get from most college admissions officers. They're like, we don't have time to go and look for, you know, look at every student's social media profile. But if they have something that they're specifically looking for, they might. But besides that, when students engage through social media with universities, they see that and they're paying attention to it. So, you know, and they use all kinds of, you know, platforms and programs that track all of this information. So as creepy as that sounds, it's a fact. And so when you apply to a college, especially a small college, and they're considering admitting you, they will look at, you know, how much have you engaged with them? And they'll look in different ways. So they may see, you know, if you've engaged with them through social media, they may see if you've engaged in their website, how much time do you spend on the website, how many links did you click through? I mean, all that data that's collected on web internet users all over the world is also collected on college students. Think about it. I mean, from their point of view, you're shopping. So they're behaving exactly like, you know, an organization that's selling something when it comes to online. So do keep in mind that the online activity, social media, all those things do matter in the application process. I think that's all I have to say.
That's something new. I didn't know they were tracking so closely.
Well, I mean, like I said, not every applicant, but when it comes down to, you know, certain decisions, they may.
Okay. So my friend who applied last year was admitted to NYU. My grades and activities are more impressive, so NYU is a safety for me in this admission cycle. So, you know, we hear this a lot. A lot of parents will come and say, but last year, you know, there was a kid in my child's school whose grades were a bit worse and they didn't do this and they got it. So one thing that I do want to say about this is that, you know, universities are actually like businesses as well, and they all have their institutional priorities that is only known to the senior management of that university. What I mean by that is when they're coming out to recruit students, they already have these stipulations. Like, for example, say, you know, a university had this year have 4 tennis from their you know national level tennis team. There's four students that are graduating. When they do go out to recruit students for the upcoming class, they are going to look to fill up those spots so that there's enough tennis players for the Tufts tennis team, for example. Right now, all this information is not known to us. It's privy to the senior management, and it's also you know things are evolving. And sometimes, you know, comparing yourself to a student in the previous cycle, you don't really know all the facts about that student either. I mean, maybe the student's grades and activities were not as impressive, but that student was a national level swimmer and was recruited through the swimming route. You don't know that, or you don't know the whole picture. So assuming that, you know, a student that you from your previous school who was admitted and that automatically the following admission cycle that, you know, this college I'm definitely going to walk into because, you know, I saw that last year a student got in, that's not the best strategy. You really need to understand, you know, what these universities are looking for, and then, you know, be a little bit more holistic and think about it when you're making that safety list. It's not just by looking at past trends. You know, we've seen there's universities, I remember like 10 years ago when I was applying, that were on people's safety list, like say Northeastern or Bryant, which would be on everybody's safety list. And now they're targets. They're hard. They're not easy to get in unless you have a strong case or you're not applying ED. They're not going to take you. Things are constantly evolving. So you need to be aware of that. Do you want to add anything, Kim?
No, I just would like to add that you know, I've been doing this for a long time now. and every year I'm actually quite frustrated by the inability of, you know, us to predict. We cannot predict. And if we could, I think we'd probably be in a great position, but unfortunately we can't, because like Namita said, things change. And also, you know, it's from a lot of, you know, what we know also, and what I've read just over the years, we also know that these things change year to year. Every student is being evaluated in the context of the admissions pool, the applicant pool. So you don't know how you stack up in the applicant pool versus the person last year and what that pool was like. And so I think Namita said that as well. But I think, you know, that can change also on day to day. And that's how kind of subjective this process can feel sometimes, especially for US students. And while there's a majority kind of a trend we can look at, it can actually just be very random. And I don't think that's what people want to hear, but it's true. And that's why students, when they're applying to the US, they apply to like, you know, 10 to 15 colleges, because you just don't know what's going to happen. It's definitely much different when it comes to outside of the US. So Canada is much more predictable. UK is much more predictable. Even Europe is very transparent. One thing though that we are seeing is that Indian liberal arts colleges are not as predictable. So that's a sort of, that holistic admissions is really sort of playing out in liberal arts colleges in India as they.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, because in the sense that, you know, otherwise in India, the mindset is always that, like, if I have the grades, I'm getting it, because we're so used to that when it comes to the engineering schools or the law schools or, you know, IIT, it's like, okay, I get the rank and I'm in. And I think the liberal arts colleges are really, you know, disrupting the space. They have a lot to offer, and they are genuinely, you know, looking at holistic admissions. I mean, there are students who who might not necessarily be, you know, academically very strong, but have something else that is very sparky about them, and then they're being admitted versus others. So it's good news, because again, you know, you can genuinely say that liberal arts education is coming into India. but it's also bad news because it's unpredictable and you don't know what's happening.
We should go on to the next ones. We're running out of time.
I know. That's why I just quickly moved on. So Kim, I'm going to let you talk about this one. It's all subjective, so I'll just apply and see what happens. If I'm lucky, I'll get it.
So I think it's great to have this one following what I just said about the subjective nature of applications. I think that is, a fact. It does happen. But what we also see is the students who get in are not getting in by luck. Namita and I have worked with enough students, targeting competitive colleges who have really worked on their profile and really done a lot to build it and been very successful in the process. And it isn't the case that, they don't get in and somebody who we didn't expect to get in got in. It's not like that. It's not so sort of all over the place. The students who are qualified, who've worked hard, who've really set themselves up for success will be successful in one college or another. But like I said, and Namita, I don't know the statistics on the particular student I'm thinking of, but he was admitted to Stanford, but he wasn't admitted to a lot of other colleges. And, that just happens. And we hear this every year, that a student who applied to Harvey Mudd early decision was denied, and then he was accepted at Princeton in regular decision. You don't know. But he was a competitive applicant for all those top colleges because of all the things he did along the way. So it isn't luck. That's not why he got in to Princeton finally. It was just that there was something about, the whole process that just clicked and came together for him at Princeton, and it didn't somewhere else. So it is still very, very important to work hard and prepare yourself for the process and be in a position, to succeed. It's not about, okay, let's just see what happens and roll the dice.
Now, 2 questions before we move on. I know we are running out of time. So first, when should you start developing your profile? And second question, of course, now everyone is curious, which liberal arts colleges are you referring to in India?
Okay, so I think, you asked this question about when to start working on your profile earlier. I think Namita did say that 9th grade onwards counts, but you can't just sort of become a competitive, tennis player in 9th grade. You have to work up to it. So some depending on the activity, some students really do start very young and then they work their way up. Others build on things like, for example, we see a lot of students who are interested in, say, math and physics and STEM subjects doing, Olympiads or competitions earlier, and then later, or earlier being involved in robotics, later getting into Olympiads. You can kind of keep working along the same lines in a particular area. But I think we see students, the particular student I was just speaking about who ended up at Stanford, I think he contacted us and started working towards that in 9th grade. Am I right, Namita?
Yes. And also, I think it really depends on the extracurricular activity. Like one of the major things that, I absolutely love is like high school students doing some kind of research. And if you're not in the IB program where you're forced to do the extended essay, having, doing some kind of research in high school is very, very, it just shows college readiness, and universities love that. And that really can't happen until you're in 10th or 11th grade. You cannot expect a 7th grade student to kind of go off and interact with the professor and do research. So it just depends on what activity you're talking about. And, like Kim said, you cannot just wake up the first day of grade 9 and say, okay, now I'm going to play competitive tennis, or I'm just going to just play chess. You lead up to it. And it's okay, like even in the 9th grade, even in the 10th grade, if you're still kind of thinking about what you want to do, and then you're consistently doing it after that, and building on it, right? That's kind of what they're looking for. And the answer for the liberal arts colleges in India, there's Ashoka University, I'm sure you've all heard of. There's Flame in Pune, there's OP Jindal, there's Kriya, there's Plaksha. These are just a few to name, but there's new ones coming up all the time. And Kim and I, the team, not just the two of us. We do spend a lot of time to understand what these Indian liberal arts colleges have to offer. How successful are their students? How happy are their students? Is it really liberal arts, or is it just kind of a private Indian college? I'm really happy to say that a lot of our, whoever we've interacted with, and all our students who've been admitted to these liberal arts colleges in India are really doing the liberal arts education that the US offers as well.
Go ahead. I'm going to take your last question, but one interesting question also, whenever you find time. IB versus CBSC versus ICSC? Does it really matter when you're thinking about college education?
Well, I saw that question. Let us get to the myth.
Back to
that question. Okay. So the last myth, Namita. Oh, this one is one of my favorites, so I made her include it, and I'll say it really quickly. I'm most likely, Namita didn't even understand the myth, so I had to explain it to her. I
would have gone for this one. This has 2,000 seats. Let me apply here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, literally, yes, that.
So I'm most likely to get admitted to the Ivy League college that admits the highest number of applicants, percentage of applicants, actually. So I'll apply there early. And so I hear this all the time, particularly in regards to Cornell. So people would say, I'm applying to all these non-Ivy League universities, and then I'm applying to Cornell. And I'm like, why are you applying to Cornell? Because it has the highest admit rate in the Ivy League. And I'm like, but do you want to go to Cornell? Do you actually want to attend college there? So that's question number one. And secondly, it doesn't mean that it's easy to get into Cornell. What I tell students is, if you really want to try a moonshot for an Ivy League college, then pick the one that is best for you, not the one with the highest admissions rate. So there are 8 Ivy League colleges. There are many other colleges that are more competitive than the Ivy League, like Duke, Stanford, Chicago, Georgetown, etc. You can apply to any of those, but pick the one that is the best one for you. And you are more likely to get in there than the place that has 25% admissions, if that's the right fit for you, because you can express that, you can articulate the match much, much better than just saying, why are you applying to our college? Because I see this as a great program. I see myself here. I see, this is a super resource, et cetera, versus I'm applying because your admit rate is the highest. I mean, it's not illogical. It mathematically makes sense, but also remember that 25% admit rate means your chances are less than 25%. They're not 25%. I mean, they're 25% minus all the things, or plus all the things that you don't have that college is looking for, right? So, I mean, you just have to be, especially when it comes to US Ivy League holistic admissions, just be very sensible about picking the right college. And on that topic, I think we can move to the IB question.
It's a major question.
Yes, so I just want to say, and I've said it many times in many forums, you can probably find like a YouTube video interview of me saying it, that all universities everywhere in the world consider Indian students from all curricula. It is fine. Any student from any curriculum can apply and be successful in any college. Now, of course, there are exceptions. There are places where if you're in a particular curriculum, you might want to supplement it. And there are certain ways that some schools stream their curriculum, like the CBSE. There'll be some schools are very, not even CBSE, I'm thinking of
ISC.
Anyway, some schools which are very rigid about, if you're in commerce and taking no math and all these kinds of funny things. That's not great. You shouldn't, you should keep math until 12th grade, but sometimes the school won't allow you to. So find another way to demonstrate that you can do math beyond the 10th grade. So what really matters, and this is what I guess I should have said first, what really matters is not the curriculum you're in, it's the subjects you have prepared, that you've taken to prepare yourself for college. That's what they're looking for. And all Indian curricula are considered strong. The IB is great. It's also, the IB is very comprehensible to admissions officers. So they're very comfortable with it. They know exactly what it means. An IB diploma program, they know it's rigorous. So yes, I mean, it's kind of, it's a good choice. But if you can't make that choice, or if a family can't afford that choice, it's also okay to stick with whatever curriculum options you have and figure out whether you need to supplement them in some way. Namita, does that answer? Do you want to add?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to quickly add to that, sometimes when we think about IB and we think about CBSE or Indian curricula, sometimes, when I counsel students and they're in the Indian curriculum and they're like, oh, should I shift to the IB because now I want to go to the US, and is that a better decision for me? And I like to evaluate how the student is faring in their current curricula first. If I get a student who's just like doing really well in the Indian curricula, they know how to do that. They're getting the A's, and they're being able to score really high marks in the examinations. Shifting them to the IB can also mean that there's going to be a bit of a they're going to kind of have a bit of a dip before they go up again. And that I don't necessarily want to see that, right? So again, it's evaluated on a per student basis. And also, the converse is true. Like if you see a student who's been in the Indian curriculum all the time and they're struggling, they're not loving it, they're like, this rotate system doesn't work for me. Then in that case, maybe shifting them to the IB might suddenly mean like a surge in academic ability, right? So again, it's not a one-on-one. And again, like Kim said, it's really not about, because I have CBSE, I'm less likely to get into Harvard. No, in fact, a lot of students that we've worked with have been successful to these top colleges are students from Indian boards. They love our curriculum. They know what we're doing. But
could you just say something about the girl you worked with this year who wanted to go to Cambridge? Just because you did feel that she was particularly prepared.
Yes, so that was the exception to the rule. I mean, I think Cambridge is a beast of its own. In fact, she applied to Oxford, actually. She applied for Oxford English. Now, that's one of the most competitive courses to get into, first of all, at Oxford. And being in the ISC curriculum probably didn't help her because she wasn't necessarily getting the kind of support to understand the literary analysis needed of, like, say, a student who's doing the A-level English, or say someone who's doing the IB English. So I do think that went against her. And Cambridge actually doesn't accept Indian students who are in the non-STEM, if you're applying to any non-STEM subjects at Cambridge, they will not accept Indian boards. But other than that, all the other universities in the world will look at the Indian boards, and it's fair and equal, as long as you're taking the right subjects.
Now, that's another question. I think, of course, we're running out of time. What about subjects? How important is it to choose the right subjects? And this question has come from and I hope you guys have a little bit more extra time.
Yeah. So I think Nidhi asked that question about the IGCSE, and then I answered saying, you have to, IGCSE is also a very strong curriculum, but you have to choose the right subjects. And what I do see with a lot of schools globally is that the IGCSE really, I mean, actually they don't require any, but you typically, the minimum number of courses is 5. And in 9th and 10th grade, 5 subjects is not enough. So we will see students who've done, 3 sciences, English, math, and that's 5 subjects, but they haven't done foreign language. They haven't done history, geography, any other social science. They haven't done world literature. They haven't, there's so many other subjects in the IGCSE that really are very strong and prepare students for success in later curricula. So depending on where you're targeting, you really need to make sure that you're taking the right subjects in those IGCSE 9th and 10th grade years, because what you don't want to do, for example, is limit yourself, and then you get into the IB or some other curriculum in 11th and 12th, and you're not prepared for it, and then you can't succeed. So all of these sort of subject-related things are very important, more so than the curriculum. So if somebody said, oh, I'm going to this school and they offer this international curriculum, my first question would be, what subjects do they offer in that curriculum? Because even an IB school could offer, only one science and only geography and not history, economics, psychology. So that's not good, right? So you have to make sure that the full range of subjects is offered in the school.
I'm going to quickly add to that one point. For me, I'm very black and white when it comes to subjects. And I think, Kim's told me that. I'm very much about study the core subjects. When we were in school, there was nothing like business studies and psychology and philosophy and global politics. We studied English, math, biology, chemistry, physics, history, geography, and those are still considered core subjects. They have, they give you a strong base to then be able to do anything at university. One particular thing that irks me the most is when students are like, I'll take computer science. And because I want to study computer science in university. Universities actually want, if you want to apply for computer science, take math, physics, and chemistry. You don't have to take computer science. In fact, I would recommend that you do not take computer science. There's an article that I wrote, and there's a quote from Sabrina, who used to be the University of Washington St. Louis admission officer. And she's clearly said that for students who want to study computer science, we want to see that their level of math, physics, and chemistry is strong, so that when they come to our university, we can teach them the computer science. That's our job. That's not this high school's job. So you don't get dissuaded by that. And one more point related to this is that universities in the US, they look to see whether you've studied lab science for the 4 years of high school. Lab science is physics, chemistry, and biology. It is not computer science or environmental systems and societies. That's not lab science. It's just, it's definitely some kind of a supplement, but it is not a lab science. And this whole argument stands true for business studies too. You know, you don't need to study business studies. In fact, LSE, which is one of the most competitive universities in the UK, you can apply for economics if you've never studied economics before, but you cannot apply for economics if you do not have math.
Okay, I want to just address this question because someone's asking about financial aid, and you also, Sukriti, asked us about financial aid before coming on. So I think one thing to keep in mind is that financial aid, expecting financial aid is very difficult. I mean, it's very ambitious. So it's not impossible, but again, like all of this, you need to plan for it. And you need to also be very open-minded if you need financial aid, because oftentimes we see students who are the best students and they can get into the best colleges, but if they need financial aid, they need to go to the colleges that will offer them money. And so just, I don't know if this is going to answer the question of Meghna, but in general, you know, the more you can prepare yourself in terms of, most scholarships are looking for students who are going to be great contributors. They want to give you a scholarship because you are somebody who's going to come to their university and really add something. So you either demonstrate through the years of high school, or it sounds like Meghna has little time to do this, demonstrate or highlight the fact that, you know, you've enhanced your community in some way, you've contributed, you've given back, you've been able to, you know, and they want to, and to convince a university that, you know, give me the scholarship so I can also come and do that at your university. And I think, you know, the students who we've seen who've been successful getting scholarships are always looking for, you know, global citizen scholarship or leadership. And so global citizenship, leadership, all of those kinds of things are what really, really do help when it comes to scholarships.
So the questions will never end, but our time is probably more than over. So any last tips from both of you before we end for tonight?
I think this is my tip, and it kind of does address one of the questions out there, is that this may be a completely new idea for some of you to think about sending your child or yourself going abroad. It's never too late. I know we've talked a lot about preparation and how competitive you need to be. And we're talking about a ideal case scenario, but everyone's situation is different and it's never too late. And I think, you know, if this is your dream and this is your kind of aspiration, you can make it happen. You have to work very, very hard. And I think yeah, that's just my tip, is it's never too late. You just have to work hard and keep at it and be open-minded, because the process is very, very broad. There's no kind of simple path. Namita, any tips?
I think just to take on from what Kim said is that, you know, I think, you know, we all want our kids to go to the best college. College admissions is important. It gives you that, maybe that kind of edge in the job market later, all of that. You know, you want your kid to go to the best college. But this is a process, and each child and each student is different. And, you know, doing things to prepare even has to be fun. I mean, you know, it's not like, you know, you come and meet us and then Kim and I give you this 4-year plan. And then it's like, okay, if you do all this stuff and tick all these boxes, then you're going to get into Harvard. It's not like that. We don't work like that. I really believe in students doing things that they genuinely passionate about, and in an organic way. And, you know, so that's something that I would really recommend, that, you know, just by doing that, you're going to be authentic and you're going to be genuine, and then your chances are going to be higher, rather than just being like, oh, you know, my friend got into Harvard because she wrote a book and she did public policy and I'm just going to copy her.
I think my big takeaway from this whole session is understand your why. You know, if you understand your why, I think it solves kind of a lot of these questions and helps you kind of through this path, as it does with most of life. I know we have lots and lots of questions, but thank you, Kim. Thank you, Namita, for sharing your time and sharing your expertise with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We'll definitely try to get the ladies back. I know there are too many questions and we can't do enough sessions on this topic.
Thank you, Sukriti. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, So Kriti, thank you very much.